Okay. Here. All right, we're back, everyone. We're on the recording. We're on live right now. So, Brother Yahusha is going to read Ayub, Job 15 for us. So, let me just get this on the shared screen here. Ow. Let's see. All right. All right. I'm going to mute myself. So let me just see here. All right. Whenever you're ready, bro.
Here, Alifaz, night, 15. Here, Alifaz, night, taking up the argument, said, "Will a wise man give the wind of knowledge for an answer, though he hath therewith filled his laboring belly, or in pleading use arguments which he ought not?" Hold on. Reasoning with improper sayings, with words in which is no profit. Have you not cast off fear and accomplished such words? You are guilty by the words of your mouth. Neither have you discerned the words of the mighty. But your own mouth reprove you, and not me, and your lips shall testify against you. What? Are you the first man that was born? Or were you established before the hills? Or have you heard the ordinance of Yahuwah, or has Yahuwah used you as his counselor? Has wisdom come to you? For what you know, don't we know also? Or what you understand, do we not also? Truly among us are both the old and very aged man, more advanced in days than your father. You have been scourged for but a few of your sins. You have spoken haughtily and extravagantly. What has your heart dared, or what of your eyes? What you have vented rage before Yahuwah and delivered such words from mouth. For who, being immortal, is that he shall be blameless? Or who that is born of a woman that he should be just? For as much as trusts not his Kadashim, and the Shemayim is not pure before him, alas, then abominable and unclean is man, drinking unrighteousness as a drought. But I will tell you, listen to me, I will tell you now what I have seen. Things wise men say and their fathers have not hidden. To them alone the earth was given, and no stranger came upon them. All the life of the wicked and care and the years granted to the oppressor are numbered, and his terror is in his ears. Just when he seems to be at shalom, his overthrow will come. Let him not trust that he shall return. Let him not trust that he shall return from darkness, for he has been already made over to the power of the sword, and he has been appointed to be food for vultures, and he knows within himself that he is doomed to be a carcass, and a dark day shall carry him away as with a whirlwind. Distress also and anguish shall come upon him. He shall fall as a captain in the first rank. For he has lifted his hands against Yahuwah, and he has hardened his neck against the Almighty Yahuwah. And he has run against him with insolence on the thickness of the back of his shield. For he has covered his face with fat, and made layers of fat upon his thighs. And let him lodge in desolate cities, and enter into houses without inhabitant. And what they have prepared, others shall carry away. Neither shall he grow rich, nor shall his substance remain. He shall not cast a shadow upon the earth. He shall no means by no means escape the darkness. Let the wind blast his blossom and let his flower fall off. Let him not think that he shall endure, for his end shall be vanity. His harvest shall perish before the time, and his branch shall not flourish. And let him be gathered as the unripe grape before the time, and let him fall as the blossom of the olive. For death is the witness of a wicked man, and fire shall burn the houses of those that receive gifts. And he shall conceive sorrows, and his end shall be vanity, and his belly shall bear deceit. I think it's interesting where it says, and he has been appointed to be food for vultures. He knows within himself that he is doomed to be a carcass. I don't know what to think about that, but it's interesting. He knows within himself.
Hey, Mom, do you have anything to add?
Not really, honey. It's pretty, pretty self-explanatory things this
Yeah.
guy had to say.
I forget if it's this chapter or the other chapter that we're about to read, but one of these chapters it shows, who's really speaking through Eliphaz.
Yeah, true.
And it kind of shows that part of Satan's character is to divide the brothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Because was there anything Eliphaz said in this chapter where it was like, angels are not even perfect in his sight? I know there's one chapter where it seems like Satan's speaking through Eliphaz.
Oh, on verse 11 it says, if Yahuwah places no trust
Yep.
in his set-apart ones.
Yeah, well, that's angels. Yep.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Set apart ones is like allegory messengers.
And he says, if even the heavens are not pure in his eyes. So, yeah, that's pretty strong words there.
Yeah, and we know who would think that way.
Yeah.
Even the angels are not perfect in his sight. Yeah. Well, if you fell from heaven, you would think that way.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I personally believe that's Satan talking through Eliphaz there. And there's another chapter, I think he talks through Eliphaz, says the same thing. He lies to Job and says, we were made of the same clay.
Mm-hmm.
When Satan appears before him, when it says a spirit appeared before me. Yeah, let me see if I can find that real quick. That's an important one to go to show that Satan's really the one putting his friends against him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. A spirit appeared before me. Excuse me. Book of Job. Let me just try to find this real quick. Yep, Job 4, verse 15. And I believe this is the only time you really get him directly encountering Satan here, where Satan takes a form, and it says here, the Septuagint says, and a spirit came before my face, and my hair, my flesh quivered. And I arose and perceived it not. I looked, and there was no form before my eyes, but I only heard a breath and a voice saying, Shall a mortal be pure before Yahuwah, or a man be blameless in regard to his works? Whereas he does not even trust in his servants, and perceives perverseness in his angels.
Yeah.
So the same spirit behind Eliphaz in this chapter spoke to Job directly in chapter 4.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. This is why Satan doesn't want people reading this book. Because it shows you how pathetic he is. He's got to rail accusations against us. He's got to slander us. So yeah. And I guess if there's anything else, I think we could go to chapter 16. See here.
Well, he tells him what he thinks of them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Job was silent for a good bit. He was about to unload.
He's about to unleash. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I think I'll just finish us off here just for time's sake.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're at Job 16 here. Let me just go back to my sword here so people can see where I'm reading from. Again, I'll read from the Bretons, just because this is a very popular version of the Septuagint here. So here we go. But Job answered and said, I have heard many much things. Poor comforters are you all. What? Is there any reason in vain words, or what will hinder you from answering? I also will speak as you do. If indeed your soul were in my bad, if indeed your soul were in my soul's stead, then would I insult you with words, and I would shake my head at you. And would there were strength in my mouth, I would not spare the movement of my lips. For if I should speak, I shall not feel the pain of my wound. And if I should be silent, how shall I be wounded the less? But now he has made me weary and a worn out fool. You have laid hold of me. My falsehood has become a witness and has risen up against me. It has confronted me to my face. In his anger, he has cast me down. He has gnashed his teeth upon me. The weapons of his robbers have fallen upon me. He has attacked me with the keen glances of his eyes. With his sharp spear, he has smitten me down upon my knees. They have run upon me with one accord. For you, who has delivered me into the hands of the unrighteous men and thrown me upon the wicked? And when I was at peace, he distracted me. He took me by the hair of the head and plucked it out, and he set me up as a mark. They surrounded me with spears, aiming at my reins without sparing. They poured out my gall upon the ground. Interesting. Poured out my gall upon the ground. This is very interesting. Now, gall is like what, vinegar?
Well, yours doesn't say he pierces my kidneys. So, right before that, he says he pierces my kidneys and spills my gall on the ground.
Kidneys, reins, same thing. It's like Middle English, reins, same thing.
Never heard that one.
Reins is like your innards, your insides.
Yeah.
Same thing. But it says, he surrounded me with spears, aiming at my kidneys without sparing me. They poured out my gall upon the ground. I found
it. Bile and gall are like the same thing, because bile is what you have.
Gall is supposed to be like that drink Yahusha had to drink.
No, I know.
That like very sour wine, sour vinegar is supposed to be gall. They overthrew me with fall upon fall. They ran upon me in strength. They sewed sackcloth upon my skin. My strength has been spent on the ground. My belly has been parched with wailing, and darkness is on my eyelids. Yet there is no righteousness. Oh, my bad. There is no unrighteousness in my hands, and my prayer is pure. Earth, cover not over the blood of my flesh, and let my cry have no place. And now, behold, my witness is in heaven. My advocate is on high. Now, I find that interesting. Mind you, this is Job, okay? Job, who hasn't been given any messianic prophecy, that we can think of other than Genesis 3. And he's calling Yahuwah his advocate. I find that interesting. Because who's supposed to be the advocate in the New Testament? Who's supposed to be the lawyer or our attorney in the New Testament? Yahusha.
Yeah, right, ruler.
The advocate. The advocate with the Father, 1 John.
Right, okay.
But mind you, this is before most messianic prophecy was ever written. The book of Job supposedly was written in the time of Masha, and he's talking about an advocate. Very, very interesting to me. Oh, that a man might plead before Yahuwah, even the Son of Man with his neighbor. Now, I wanted to explain this. There's a difference between a son of Adam, a son of a mortal, just regular son of a man, versus the son of Adam. The Son of Man is a messianic type of title. And most likely the word "the" is not even in the Greek in this verse here. So I don't believe this, obviously this is not talking about the same context.
Yeah.
If you look into the Greek here, probably the word "the" is not there. Yeah. Just Son of Man's in Greek, no "the." So yeah. Child of mankind, yeah. Okay, so that's important to understand there. So the Son of Man is a messianic title that only belongs to Yahusha. As far as the Son of Man versus a son of Adam.
Yeah.
But my years are numbered, and end come, and I shall go by the way by which I shall not return. So pretty self-explanatory. He's emptying himself. He's talking about how his friends are no comforters. He feels that he's getting attacked from all sides. He even feels like Yahuwah is just ready to destroy him, ready to send his wrath upon him. From what I've noticed here, and I gotta keep reminding myself, is Job, it was not raised with knowing Yahuwah and knowing his character. So in a way, Job is very
Well, dang, it just straight kicked him off.
It almost kicked me off too.
And me too.
What? Wow. My bad, guys. I exited out by mistake. So what I was saying was, just to clarify, I was saying that Job doesn't fully understand Yahuwah's character. Most likely, this book was written in the context of him, whenever he would have became a believer. So a lot of the things Job's going through right now, he's like, he knows Yahuwah on some type of level, but you'll see in certain parts of the book, he seems to not even have encountered him until a certain part of the book. I think, what is it, Mom? Chapter 39, 40 talks about, I've heard of you, but I've never seen you before. So it's like,
those are the excellent chapters.
So in a essence, Job is kind of like us that first come into the faith. Like you can kind of say Job like has heard of Yahuwah, heard of who he is, and knows certain parts of his character, but really doesn't know him. So again, Job is like kind of getting this false idea like Yahuwah is some big meanie in the sky going to strike him. And it's like he's not fully understanding Yahuwah's mercy, his favor, his compassion, and I think that's what's happening. I think because you see a lot of what Job writes here, or if he was the one to write it or Masha wrote it, Job is like kind of misunderstanding who Yahuwah is. He thinks Yahuwah is like just beating him up and attacking him. Like, and I think that's where because he doesn't know him on a personal level, he thinks he has a misunderstanding of Yahuwah's character on some type of level. So it's important to understand that when we read the book of Job.
Yeah.
Job is not someone who was raised as a Hebrew. So
Yeah.
I think that's something to point out, because once you get to the last chapter of the book, it says he was of the sons of Esau. So what you have to understand, this guy was raised as a heathen, raised as a pagan. He converted at some point to become an Abri, a Hebrew, but he doesn't fully understand Yahuwah or know Yahuwah on the same type of level as Moshe would have known him, as Noah would have known him, as Abraham would have known him. Those guys personally knew Yahuwah early on in their walks. And it seems like Job still doesn't fully understand who Yahuwah is, which I can kind of relate. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
I don't think being raised in Yashral necessarily equates to knowing Yahuwah. There's a lot of Yashral that was raised that didn't necessarily personally know Yahuwah or have intimacy with him. I think that only applies to because there's some of us that weren't raised in Yashral. I think knowing Yahuwah and being intimate with Yahuwah is who he chooses to be intimate with.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. So that's kind of I do want to find that verse for everyone though that I'm referring to, where Job even admits that he hasn't even encountered Yahuwah in a physical level up until that point. When does Yahuwah mom? Oh, never mind. She had to take a break real quick. Let me see here.
For that, on the same thing that you just brought up with Job not knowing Yahuwah, I think in chapter 1 where he's giving offerings to Yahuwah for the sins of his sons, if in case they perhaps sin, I think that's how it words it.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere in the Torah that allows for people to give offerings for someone else's sin?
If you're not a priest, that would be a no. So,
yeah,
so,
but even if you're a priest, can you offer up something for someone else?
Yeah, the Levites had to. They had to. On the Day of Atonement, they had to give 3 different offerings. They had to give offerings for their own sins, their family's sins was the second type of atonement offering, and all of Israel. So actually, yeah, the Levites.
Weren't Yashral bringing those offerings, and all the Levites were just the ones offering them up, though, right? They weren't actually providing the lamb.
Yeah, they weren't providing them, but Yahuwah was crediting the Levites with actually being the ones to offer up for the people. So technically,
that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think Job was actually offering them up, but he was providing the lambs for.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been doing that. And again, this is a most likely pre-Levitical context. This book, I think it's important to keep in mind here that certain aspects of the Torah are not going to be the same in the book of Job as Exodus or Leviticus or Deuteronomy or Numbers. If Job was written like a lot of them claim around Exodus 18, you don't have a Sinai covenant yet. You don't have.
Me to believe that just because of some of the things that they say make it hard to seem that it would be before. I could be wrong.
Well, we have to remind ourselves too is that sacrifices were not created in the Levitical priesthood. As far as offerings and stuff like that, there were certain offerings that Abraham was able to give from himself, provide himself offerings to Yahuwah. There was certain sacrifices that Jacob did. So as far as sacrifices in general, it did not have to be in the context of a Levitical priesthood. The law from the garden had to start sacrifices in general after sin came in. So there had to be certain sacrifices Yahuwah gave in the garden. And so that's why I don't think necessarily Job has to be in a Levitical priesthood context when talking about certain commands of the law that are being mentioned, because certain things were always given from Yahuwah to mankind in his law before the law of Moses. There are certain commandments that pre-exist the law of Moses. So that's why I don't think it's necessarily this book has to be written in a Levitical context.
They're just talking about the offerings. I don't know. I would have to go back and read it, but there seems his friends say things that are just almost seem like it's like Torah of Masha that they're quoting.
Yeah.
I'd have to find specific instances, but
yeah, there is possible. It's possible. From what I've seen, a lot of the concepts they have though are very general concepts that there would have been in someone's knowledge even before, before the law of Moses even came. I haven't seen anything specific yet, but
no, you're right.
Yeah, because like a lot of what they're saying to him is like, why are you not fearing Yahuwah? Why are you putting yourself at his place? A lot of that stuff, like they probably would have known from the fall, and just things that Adam and Kua would have taught their children and next generation. Just a lot of basic stuff too. Like he corrects his wife on telling him to curse Yahuwah, stupid stuff like that. Like obviously we know it's very bad to do that. But you could be right. It's very possible. But yeah, if the claim that it was written around Exodus 18, there's no way you would have the law of Moses at that point. So it all depends when this book was written. Yeah, that's what it really all depends, and it's hard to tell because we know that it's a lot earlier than what people claim because, it doesn't fit with the narrative of the other poetic books that they try to put it with. So we know it had to have been written way before Psalms, Proverbs, and all that. But we just don't know exactly when. It all depends when exactly Job would have lived. And that's the problem too, is that there's differences of opinion. Some people think he was of Masha's dad's, generation. Some people think he was of Masha's generation. So it's like there's no even consensus of when exactly he was born, died. We have a little bit of hints of in Bereshit, Genesis, of when when his generation would have been. It does also say that he reigned, I think, before Balak, if I'm not mistaken. So we would have to figure out when Balak, son of Beor, or whatever his name is, would have lived and all that, and try to figure it out, because that's the best we could do to our ability is what we're given in Scripture. There's not really a lot about his upbringing. We don't really know when Job would have lived, other than the fact that he's the fifth generation from Abraham. You have 5 generations, I guess, after Abraham, but does that mean like 5 generations from the birth of Abraham or the death of Abraham? So that's a whole nother problem is when exactly that means. If it's the 5th generation from his birth, we would have to figure out when Abraham was born. So it's a lot of hearsay what I'm talking about here. It's a lot of hearsay. There's no way for me to prove my point, other than just looking at the context of the contents of Job and what's being referenced here. But I agree with you in a general census, though. He should not be offering up stuff for his children. That is definitely a specific duty of a priest. He's not a priest, never was. He's not of a lineage that can be a priest. He's an Edomite. I know some people will be saying, Doug, where are you getting that from? How do you know he's an Edomite? I'm I'm going to just read this for you guys, even though this is a little ahead of time because we're not at chapter 42 yet, but just to kind of, this is something to consider that, the Masoretes didn't want us to know. It says here, Job 42:17, and Job died an old man, full of days. And it was written that he will rise again. It's talking about the resurrection with those whom Yahuwah raises up. So at some point, Job was revealed. I think Yahusha revealed himself to Job. The fact that Job, in the chapter we just read, calls him his advocate. The fact that Job knew about a resurrection at a certain point of the book. This man is described in the Syriac book as living in a land of Uz. By the way, Uz is right there. That should kind of give you a hint. On the borders of Edom, and Arabia. And his name before was Jobab, or Jobab. And having taken an Arabian wife, he begot a son whose name was Enon, or Anan. And he himself was the son of his father Zerai, one of the sons of Esau, and his mother Bosora, so that he was the fifth from Abraham. And these were the kings who reigned in Edom, the country he also ruled over. First Balak, son of Beor, and the name of his city was Denabah. But then and then after Balak, Jobab, who is called Job. So, I'm sorry, let me correct myself. So Job would have been after Balak's generation. Now, that is interesting.
That is it.
Because that means Job would have lived pretty long. Even let's just say even that he wasn't of Masha's generation or his dad's generation. Let's say he's a generation after Masha. He would have lived from like the time of like what, Leviticus all the way through Numbers and all that. So I mean that's kind of interesting.
140 years after. He got 140 years after it was all over.
Yeah, so it says here after him. No, I think 140 years total.
Oh, is that right?
His life was 140 years total, if I'm not mistaken. And after him, Asan was governor out of Teman, Nadad, son of Barad, who destroyed Midian in the plain of Moab. And the name of his city was Gathaim, and his friends who came to him were Eliphaz of the children of Esau, king of the Temanites, Beldad, son of the Sukians, Zuphar, king of the Manaeans. But I do believe it in this chapter it talks about that he died 140 years old.
Could be mine is just worded badly because it says after this, Job lived 140 years.
What verse is that?
Verse 16.
Yeah, well, the Masoretes would probably want you to believe he lived that long.
Oh, all right.
Septuagint says that all the years he lived were, oh, my bad, you're right, 240. Now, again, this is the reason a lot of Christians that use Bible charts want you to think that he's a pre-flood guy. I completely disagree. If you look at what I just read from the end of Job, he's not pre-flood at all. If he's the fifth from Abraham, he's not pre-flood. But what they'll say is, well, he lived 200 something years. Like, the life expectancy is 120 years. I mean, that's a whole nother assumption we take, is that Yahuwah meant that everyone after the flood was going to only live to 120 years. That's not true at all. That didn't even happen. That life expectancy didn't even happen until Masha died, pretty much. So that's an assumption, and that's that.
You know something, Doug? If you really know his character, once we know our Abba, it would be just like him to give that kind of a gift back to Job after all this. I have no trouble. Nobody has to prove anything to me. I have no trouble believing that he would give him a baraka like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but as far as the 120 years being an age expectancy for everyone, I don't know. I think that's a huge assumption in my opinion.
Right.
That's a huge assumption that's really not backed up until you get into later generations. You don't really get everyone dying at 120 years. So exactly, because there's even people that would die at 121 or 22. So I don't know. I think that's a misunderstanding in my opinion. But anyway.
People, Doug, believe that 120 years refers to when the flood would happen.
Yeah, I believe that too. That's my opinion on it. I believe that too. It's actually talking about repenting. You got 120 years to repent before the flood. And that's what I believe actually was going on. But I could be wrong, but that's my opinion on it. I think that if we interpret that to be talking about a new age expectancy, and then you have people after the flood living longer than that, you have a contradiction. So something must be missing from our understanding of that verse, because there's clearly people living way past that after the flood. Just saying, even from Noah's generation. So it doesn't make sense. It would make sense that Yahuwah in general is giving, a certain amount of time for people to repent of what they were doing that caused the flood. So that and Yahuwah always gives that to people. He always gives them a last chance before judgment comes, before his wrath comes.
Right.
So that's kind of my opinion on it, but I'm trying to think of what else. So going back to what, I don't think there was anything really else really much here. Obviously his friends were sore comforters. Jeez. I know where he's coming from. When your friends, man, they just pick on you, adding salt to the wound, salt to the wound. It's like, man, can y'all shut up for a second? Jeez, like that's how I would feel, man. I know where he's coming from.
Grandmother used to say with friends
Not to correct myself, I would say you're definitely right. If it definitely has to be pre-Levitical, if if Job is being considered righteous but offering up offerings, then if it was past Levitical and Levitical priesthood had already been established, then that would be held against him, that he's offering up stuff.
Yeah, and there's just certain things that definitely make me think it's the Mosaic covenant. Just certain things. I think what confuses a lot of people about the timeline of it is the Masoretes add in like Chaldeans in one verse, and they give like certain terminology that doesn't make sense, and they're trying to people are trying to figure out the dating of Job just because the Babylonians are mentioned. But Job would have been a couple of generations from the first Chaldeans anyway, so that you can't really base it off of that, in my opinion. That's I believe the Septuagint gives us more of a hint. 5 generations from Abraham, that kind of gives us a hint. So if you do 5 generations from Abraham, what's kind of interesting is you do have him like right between Moshe and his dad, like right there. So I've done it with the Bible Hub Bible chart. You do like 5 generations, whatever generation is. If a generation's 100 years or whatever, you added 5 times. You kind of get around to the time of somewhere around the Exodus of him being born. Which would make sense why there's a tradition about Moshe supposedly writing it. But again, that's hearsay. I don't have proof that Moshe wrote the book. It would be kind of interesting if he did, because then all these Sethite theorists have to go and get into their fetal positions, because that means that you have no claim that the B'nai Elohim means humans. Literally, because the Septuagint of Job, it only mentions it twice. Agelos Theos both times. So that means if Job was written before Genesis, you're screwed. If you're a Sethite theorist, you're screwed, because the law of precedence, and they teach this in seminary, by the way, in seminary school they teach this, called the law of first usage or precedence. Whatever the definition is of something when it's first used, that's the universal definition. So if Job did come before Bereshit, guess what? That means that B'nai Elohim has to mean angels. So that's kind of the argument I would put up first, is if you do believe that Moshe wrote it, then you're kind of screwed. So, you know. But anyway, because then the rest of the Old Testament has to follow that same rule for that phrase. So anyway, same thing with stars too, by the way, FYI. Job 38:7 equates stars with angelos. So you would have to assume then stars universally are angels. So very interesting. If the Jewish tradition about when Job was written or even who wrote it, it would actually prove, our point actually. So, but anyway, but yeah, so
Sure, brother, in
Yeah.
Spanish, it's angeles.
Angeles,
Angeles, yes.
almost like
So-
ankles, huh? That's interesting.
Angeles, or am I saying my pronunciation's clear? Angeles, and it means angels in Spanish. So you can see how the words connect. And it's meaning angels.
Yep, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so that's just something interesting to look into, is when exactly it was written. Really doesn't, I don't think it's a big deal when it was written or who it was written by, but I definitely think as we get closer and closer to the end, you're going to see how the Septuagint version of Job here is putting everything together, that really what's going on is Job's friends are falsely accusing him of sin. That's what's going on. They're making assumptions. They're not really seeking out the matter. They'd be like, oh, you must have done this. You must have done that. You deserved it. And, so, and eventually Yahuwah rebukes them for it. That's how you know that the Septuagint version of Job is the authentic version, because there's no contradictions. When you look at the Masoretic version, you're like, what the heck's going on with Yahuwah? Yahuwah is like listening to Job seems like Job is being self-righteous, that he thinks he's in the right, Yahuwah is in the wrong. The way that Masoretic presents Job, it's like he's self-righteous, he thinks he can be right and Yahuwah is wrong and this and that. And then Yahuwah declares him righteous. It completely contradicts its own self. So anyway, so I personally believe there's an agenda there. They didn't like Job for some reason. I can only imagine with the traditions that, oh, well, we can't, a heathen can't be equal to a son of Israel. Oh, someone that's a descendant of Esau. No way. He can't join to Israel. So, but anyway, and I do think that's why certain camps won't look into the Septuagint, is because they're afraid to admit Job was not an ethnic Hebrew. That would throw off their theology. That's a little opinion of mine. Why certain, camps out there won't touch the Septuagint, because they want to hold on to the assumption that Job was, a ethnic seed of Abraham. Because supposedly you have to be of that seed to be saved and all that nonsense. But, so there's definitely reasons why people won't give this version a chance of Job, because it exposes a lot of false assumptions we have, and all that. So, but anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully it was, encouraging, uplifting, and hopefully you're looking forward to next time, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you next time, and all the viewers and listeners. Please stay tuned. Yahuwah willing, we will be starting Numbers chapter 1 next week, and we'll be continuing in Ayub, Job, I believe 17 to 18. So please stay tuned. Shabbat Shalom to all of our brothers and sisters out there, and have a great rest of your Shabbat. Shalom.